Thank you, Chief Judge Phillips, for that introduction and great description of Beverly. I think you really captured it, captured her rather, and I think you did a lovely job. And I also want to thank you personally in front of all these folks as well. When I was in that moment where it appeared that I may lose Beverly and I was in the hospital, Chief Judge Phillips was right there and was there for the duration. And having lost her spouse under completely different circumstances, nevertheless, she was a great support to me because I recognized that she was someone who understood where I was, and I appreciated you being there. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. There's a whole lot of judges in the room, and I'm a trial lawyer. I'm allotted 5 minutes, and I'm just going to say right up front that I might exceed it. I don't know. We'll see. On behalf of Beverly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to the California Women Lawyers for this prestigious award. Wow. Joan Dempsey Klein, there's a name. There is someone who Beverly would be floored to be receiving an award named after her. She would just be floored. I can guarantee you that Beverly would be humbled and honored receiving this from this organization that's made up of colleagues who she knew, she loved, and she respected. In fact, I can guarantee you she would be very emotional and her voice would be breaking. You know, when I first got here tonight, after I was here for a few minutes, Renee brought up the fact that it was a CWL event when Beverly suffered the ruptured brain aneurysm. And as Renee indicated a few moments ago, she feels some guilt, I guess, about the fact that that occurred at a CWL event. I want to tell you what I told Renee. For years, Beverly and I spoke about where our lives were going and where we wanted to be near the end of our lives. And for her, she loved the law. She loved practicing law. She loved being a judge. And she wanted to do that or teach and do that kind of stuff until the end. I thoroughly expected that I would be long gone and she would be late in her 80s, into her 90s, driving a convertible, senior judge somewhere working quarter time, whether she's on the circuit or district court, who knows. Still having these great conversations with her law clerks and telling them what they should or shouldn't shop for women, and telling them where they should or shouldn't vacation for both men and women. And I just knew that she would be doing that she loved until the end. Well, here's the irony. Nobody from this organization should feel bad about what transpired that day. I am absolutely astounded that all of the things that Beverly loved to do came together in that single event. She was with her federal family, as she used to call it, in the federal courthouse when she was struck. She was in her role as a judge, a role that she relished. But she wasn't on the bench hearing a case. No, she was doing something else she loved, teaching, mentoring. And that happened to be an event that was not just teaching a class, but rather teaching and mentoring other lawyers who were thinking about becoming judges. And she loved to be in front of a group as a presenter. She was really skilled at it, as all of you know. And there she was, checking all of those boxes simultaneously up until the last moment of her consciousness. And what's interesting is, from that point forward, after she went down, she never suffered any pain. She never suffered any fear. Most of us aren't going to be that lucky. But she ended up doing exactly what we talked about, which was doing everything that she loved right until the end. It's just that the end came 40 years sooner than we would have expected. So to CWL, I say, good for you for having put on this wonderful event that she was a part of. And that was her last moment. It's not something you should feel guilty about. It's something that you should relish and cherish, that you provided this opportunity for her last moment to be right where she wanted to be, doing right what she wanted to be doing. Many of you have heard me say before that she was the most incredible human being and the most incredible soul that I've ever known. However, she was also the best lawyer I've ever known. I used to tell people that I aspired to be half the lawyer that she was, and they thought I was just being a kind spouse, and I'd say, no, I really mean it. If I can be half as good as she is, I'll be pretty darn good. And she was the only person who I've ever met who seemed like she was born to be a judge, a great judge. She was smart, as has been mentioned already, a great listener, and by the way, that's almost necessary if you're married to Motormouth Dan. She cared greatly about people. She wanted everyone to be treated fairly, and most of all, she wasn't afraid to make a decision. She was a demanding lawyer and later judge, always wanting to make sure that she had the law right. I remember hearing her come home and say, you know, I think I got something wrong today. I think I'm going to have to tell the lawyers that I need to have them come back on this. I think I got it wrong. How many people are willing to not only A, be decisive, but also B, be willing to recognize that maybe they need to correct themselves because they got it wrong? She was really demanding. She was a heck of a wordsmith. Just ask her law clerks and externs. They know. And by the way, she always referred to her law clerks as her children when she spoke to me. She loved the law. She loved the practice of law. I remember one night we're laying in bed with the lights off, about to go to sleep. She'd been reading the advance sheets, the daily appellate reports from the Daily Journal before retiring. Shut the lights off, and I'm closing my eyes, about to go to sleep. And she starts saying, you know, that case that the U.S. Supreme Court just decided is really interesting. I really wonder what lies ahead down the road with other cases. I said, can we go to sleep now? I recall when her best friend tried to have a conversation in confidence with me that she was concerned about Beverly, that Beverly was a workaholic. She was deeply concerned because Beverly never seemed to have enough time to go do fun things, and don't you know that maybe she's got a problem that she's a workaholic? I had to explain to her friend that while some people might like to garden on the weekends, or some people might like to go to the golf course on the weekend, she loved nothing more than the puzzle of an interesting case, or reading and understanding some case that had just come down, or reading briefs. She enjoyed that. She enjoyed the challenge of it. She was not a workaholic. She had just the good fortune to have fallen into a career that was, well, not fallen, it was planned. I mean, she was doing what she loved. And that's all there was to it. But as has been mentioned, it was her enthusiasm, her natural leadership, and team building skills that really set her out apart from so many other lawyers and judges. Gosh, just to touch on a couple here that all of you know some of the stories, but I'm going to add to the tidbits you don't know. Everyone knows or has heard about her decorating chambers before the Bruin Trojan game, right? And that is real. That was very skillful leadership on her part, because what it did is it helped build camaraderie in the courthouses where she served, first at the LA Superior Court level, and then later on at the federal court, because it created this banter between the judges that built camaraderie. But let me tell you, now that she's gone, I can tell you one deep, dark secret. So she'd been in the Norwalk courthouse, right? And that's where she used to say that she learned how to become a judge. And she was out of there, and she was downtown by this time. And the big football game rolls around, and so she wants to go back down to Norwalk and decorate the chambers of some Trojan judges with blue and gold. And I think the first year she did it was fine, but the second year she went back, they changed the locks in the courthouse. And so the fact that she kept her credential and her keys wasn't going to get her in the door. Not to be deterred, she went over to the Norwalk Sheriff's Station, went to a sheriff's deputy and said, "Hi, I'm Judge O'Connell. Here's my ID. I can't get into the courthouse. I don't have a key with me." "No problem, Your Honor. We'll take care of it." Sheriff's deputy but he goes over to the Norwalk Courthouse, opens up the Norwalk Courthouse, lets her in. She goes in and does her usual thing. The judges were completely beside themselves because they couldn't figure out how this had happened and how she'd gotten into the courthouse. Well, now you know. But that was Bev. She was bold and was willing to take a risk or a chance sometimes when it was for the right reason. She was the one who had the brownie bake-offs in the courthouse, right, Chief Judge Phillips? Brownie bake-off?
We had a two-woman contest for a peach dessert, and she gave me the prize for best runner-up in a two-person contest against loser.
This doesn't sound like your usual federal court kind of stuff now, does it? But that was Bev. Oh, it gets better. Besides celebrating birthdays and baby showers and things like that in her chambers, which she was famous for, how many of you know that on a dare, she and another federal district court judge from Nevada did shots with Justice Scalia? Now she's gone, he's gone, so it's okay to say. I wouldn't have said it if either one of them were still alive. Justice Scalia was very specific. He said, no problem, but there's going to be no pictures. And what's interesting is it wasn't that many months later that he was gone, and now she's gone. But yeah, that was Beverly. So, you know, people who have said to me, well, you know, once she became a judge, she lost her fun streak. She's not the same person she used to be. I say, baloney. And one of the other great things about her was, as was mentioned, how she treated litigants. I'm reminded of one story, and I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right. A law clerk or an extern who watches this can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll give you the general gist. This is an example of the kinds of things that would happen. In federal court, they have cases being removed from state court. People are being foreclosed out of their homes by the banks, and so they try to remove the case to federal court. We've all seen these. They get tossed out of federal court, obviously. But there are other kinds of pro per cases that have no merit that get brought to federal court, and it's not uncommon for them to be dismissed on the papers. We all know that. There was one particular case I recall where a pro per litigant had a case, and she had a hearing and had the pro per come in, and she's going to dismiss the case. And she let him explain what his issues were. And from what I understand, she looked at him and she said, Mr. So-and-so, I hear you, I understand what you're saying, and I understand why you're upset. But unfortunately, what you're complaining to me about is not in your papers. And you have to state that in a cause of action, and it's not here. So I have to dismiss your case because you haven't put that down. And so the case gets dismissed. And the externs and the law clerks told me that this man left the courtroom feeling like he'd been heard. And he was really okay with being thrown out of federal court because the judge listened to him. That's the kind of person she was. It was how she treated people in her life that really made the difference. And by the way, that happened all over, and you all know that. My sister-in-law, who's here tonight, knew Beverly for 4 days. My brother married Kimberly on September 10th of last year. On September 11th, I put Beverly on the plane in Spokane to fly back down here. And of course, on September the 15th, Beverly went down. And Kimberly was, thrilled to meet this wonderful person. And then she was gone. When we went on a trip with people from my university, they all thought she was terrific. More fun than I was, because even though she was ruined. That's just Beverly. That was just who she was. Really, in closing, I want to leave you with an important thought that I think it should inform all of our lives. And some of you have heard this before, and I apologize for saying it again, but I think it's so incredibly important, it's worth repeating. When Beverly lost her father, she came home and said to me, she said, Dad, I'm not living another day of my life doing anything that I don't want to be doing. Well, I told you that I was going to tell you a few stories of things that you may not know, and I will honor that with this story as well. There's a reason that she said that. the reason she said that was because of what she'd experienced in her life previously. So she says, I'm not living another day of my life doing anything I don't want to be doing. And she would tell me how important it was to live in the moment and to live each day to its fullest, because you never know when it's going to be over. And I would say to her, I'd say, I understand. She says, you really don't. You don't get it. You haven't lost anybody close to you. You don't get it. Here's why Beverly was the person that you knew and loved. Let me tell you. She was 4 years old. Her sister was 6 years old. Their mother went into the bathroom. Their mother didn't come out of the bathroom. They went into the bathroom to look for their mother, and their mother was down on the floor. Their mother ended up passing away from a pulmonary embolism. She was one of those people back in 1970, one of those women in 1970, yes, who lost her life due to the high levels of estrogen in the pill. Okay? As a women's group, I think you all can appreciate that. Beverly then, her mother, her grandmother, and her grandfather moved in to help take care of, raise the girls. Her grandfather suffers a stroke. Beverly is 6 or 7 years old, running home from elementary school every day to feed her grandfather, who wouldn't eat until his granddaughter came home to feed him. They lost him. They all moved back to California, and three great aunts and the grandmother helping to raise her. She lost one great aunt, and then another great aunt, and then the great aunt's husband. I marry her. She loses her grandmother, who helped raise her like a mother, and the final great aunt. And then 29 years and 11 months, as Beverly was wont to say, from the day she lost her, 29 years and 11 months after she lost her mother, here's what happens. Linda comes home from the East Coast, her older sister, for Christmas. And Beverly and Linda go out to their dad's house in Northridge. They go to El Torito or someplace to have dinner. They come back from dinner. We're sitting around talking. Dad gets up to go to the bathroom. No joke. And he doesn't come back. The girls go, where's Dad? He's in the office. They go looking for him. Linda finds her father in the bathroom, and he's had a massive heart attack and has fallen into the sunken tub. He ends up passing away. Beverly calls me on the phone. I rush over there. It was the day after that she came home and she said to me, I'm not living another day of my life doing anything I don't want to be doing. She understood how short life is and how important it is to live every moment to its fullest. So now you know why this person who was full of life, that you loved so much, lived her life that way. That's why she was who she was. Because she got it. She understood. She knew she could be all over any second. So gosh darn it, she was all in right now. And I think it's a great lesson for all of us as we look at the life that she lived, and a life of paying it forward, a life of serving others. And I would commend to you that if you want, go to the Pepperdine University School of Law website that has her scholarship information, the scholarship fund for her. I've put 3 videos there. One is the memorial service. If you didn't make it, you would like to see it, you may want to look at it. I think people tell me it changed their lives watching that memorial service. The second thing is, Renee, you mentioned the 2015 address she gave to the law students at Pepperdine about giving back and about service. It's tremendous. It's really worth watching. And the third video I had posted to that site that's worth watching is she talks about the rule of law as part of the Uganda program that Pepperdine's been doing in trying to help the judicial system and the judiciary and the criminal justice system in Uganda. And she's part of the documentary. It was made as part of that. For those of you who are lawyers and judges, it's really, all 3 very powerful videos and they're worth watching. So I've taken up way more than my time. I want to say to you, all of you, thank you very much on behalf of Beverly. She would just be stunned. But I think the message we all need to take away is to live our lives the way she lived hers. And that is